The criminal hush money trial involving former President Donald Trump has resumed. It resumed earlier this morning, and Trump was flanked by MAGA Republican representatives as he entered the courthouse. The defense resumed its cross-examination of former Trump attorney Michael Cohen, focusing on past comments that he's made on podcasts. I want to bring back in CBS News national correspondent and fellow anchor Errol Barnett, who's outside of the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. So, Errol, Trump reportedly has been much more engaged in court today and has paid attention to Cohen's testimony. Talk to us about his demeanor and what you're seeing.
Hey there, Lana. Well, it's pretty, incredible to watch a former president sit as a criminal defendant and hear some of the worst insults against him, including expletives, coming from Michael Cohen, one of the star witnesses, and he just really has to listen and take it. He's engaged. It seems as though his eyes close and he leans back in his chair at times, but he is engaging with his legal team. Meantime, outside the courthouse, moments ago, we're witnessing some of his supporters putting on a bit of a stunt. A huge moving truck released dozens of what looked like penis-shaped helium balloons. Yes, that's what I said, with black and white images of Judge Merchan or Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who has nothing to do with this case. They all seem to just float in front of the courthouse, and some Trump supporters claimed responsibility. All that while House Freedom Caucus Republicans are out here supporting Mr. Trump as well. CBS News campaign reporter and attorney Katrina Kaufman was in the main courtroom and can help us understand how the defense is trying to undermine Michael Cohen's credibility this morning. How are they doing that?
So they've had a lot of tactics, but one, of course, has been to go through Michael Cohen's history of lying under oath, lying to Congress, lying on the stand, and they've really gone step by step through all of the times that this has happened. And the jurors have been watching very closely. I was looking at them a lot during this morning's testimony, and they were watching Cohen. They were flipping their heads back and forth as Blanche was accusing him of all of the various times when he's lied. I saw a lot of very fervent note-taking. So this is absolutely very important testimony for them, because a lot of this case may come down to whether or not they believe what Michael Cohen says about Trump's involvement in the scheme.
And those lies were part of Cohen's guilty plea as it related to his role in this, and he served 2.5 years in prison.
Sorry, and I want to add too, as I was leaving just now, they had brought up a phone call that Michael Cohen talked about on the stand in this case, where Cohen said he had called Keith Schiller, who was Trump's former bodyguard, or maybe current bodyguard, and to talk to Trump, though. And it was about the Stormy Daniel deal. And they're actually saying that he didn't talk to Trump that day, that it was just a phone call with Schiller. And so they're actually trying to say that he may have lied on the stand here.
And that's key, because we understand Cohen may be the last witness from the prosecution. The defense has yet to decide on if it may bring people forward. But we're in the home stretch, really, of this trial in this case. And 12 jurors just need to decide if Donald Trump is guilty or innocent. Talk to me about the difference we're seeing today in House Republicans showing up and being very visible supporters of Donald Trump.
Yeah, so this was the largest entourage that I have seen walk into court with Trump, and he really strode in with just this stream of people behind him. It was about 11 Republicans total who came to support him, filling up these rows behind Donald Trump, watching during this testimony with Michael Cohen this morning, and then some of them also came outside and spoke during the morning break. And we've noticed that they've been saying some of the things that Trump can't. They're criticizing Michael Cohen, for example, which is something that Trump can't do under this gag order. But as this trial is coming to a close, they are coming and showing their support.
And Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville had said in an interview yesterday that he was doing this in effect to get around the gag order for Donald Trump. So it's yet to be seen if Judge Merchan, how he feels about that. But one other note, Lana, is that the judge this morning indicated that because there's no court on Friday, Donald Trump said he had to attend his son Barron's high school graduation, and there's no court next Friday, we may have court in session next week, Wednesday. I think he's trying to balance out the calendar. Did he decide?
Actually, I believe that we're not. I think that one of the jurors had a conflict, so I don't think that we're going to have court on Wednesday.
Yeah, that was a question the judge had raised this morning, and if a juror had an issue, he said, get back to me. apparently they did.
Yeah, the judge is very respectful of the jury in this case. We're actually wrapping testimony a little bit early today because one of them has an obligation, so he's really sensitive to their needs.
Today, the proceedings are supposed to end around 4 p.m., and so, Lana, that's why it's important that for the defense, they leave the jury heading into the long weekend with doubt about Cohen, his trustworthiness, his credibility. They just need one of the 12 jurors to not believe beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump committed these 34 felonies. And so Cohen being undermined is really their goal for the day.
Yeah, and just to add, Michael Cohen is very attuned to this as well as a lawyer. Today, he was even turning to the jury and talking directly to them as he was trying to explain some of his history.
Very interesting. Appreciate getting all these details as they are happening in real time there outside the courthouse. Errol and Katrina, thank you.